Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
This month we read The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Linde. K.A. Linde is a New York Times, USA Today, and #1 Sunday Times bestselling author of The Wren in the Holly Library. She is prolific in both romance and fantasy and loves the blend of the two. She has a master's degree in political science and bachelor's in philosophy from the University of Georgia. In her previous life, she was a head campaign worker for a presidential campaign and the coach of a Duke University dance team. She loves reading fantasy novels, traveling to far-off destinations, and dancing in her spare time. She currently lives in Lubbock, Texas with her husband and son. Barbara, you want to tell us a little bit about this book?
It was originally published on June 4th of 2024. The genres considered fantasy, romance, romantasy, and urban fantasy. It is 400 pages and currently has a 3.7 on Goodreads, a 4.2 on Amazon, and a 3.8 on Fable. It has not been nominated for or won any awards at the time of this recording, and we think it's important for readers to know what, if any, representation is in the books we read. So for this book, there are main and supporting LGBTQ plus characters, supporting BIPOC characters, main and supporting characters with disabilities.
Alrighty, Lauren, you want to tell us the little brief synopses of the book before we dive in?
Can you love the dark when you know what it hides? Some things aren't supposed to exist outside of our imagination. 13 years ago, monsters emerged from the shadows and plunged Kierse's world into a cataclysmic war of near-total destruction. The New York City she knew so well collapsed practically overnight. In the wake of that carnage, the Monster Treaty was created, a truce of sorts. But tonight, Kierse, a gifted and fearless thief, will break that treaty. She'll enter the Holly Library, not knowing it's the home of a monster. He's charming, quietly alluring, terrifying, but he knows talent when he sees it. It's just a matter of finding her price. Now she's locked into a dangerous bargain with a creature unlike any other. She'll sacrifice her freedom, she'll offer her skills, together they'll put their own futures at risk. But he's been playing a game across centuries, and once she joins in, there will be no escape.
Bum, bum, bum. So, what did you think about The Wren in the Holly Library? And remember, no spoilers.
So I feel like I went on a journey with this book. Like, I liked the beginning part and I was like really invested in the world. I really enjoyed the world and I wanted more of the world. And then a little towards the middle where we kind of get more of like their relationship building and stuff like that, I was kind of uninterested in that. And then at the end it really like sucked me back in. And like without spoiling anything, like I really like I just kind of it was hard for me to like I saw myself being like, okay, like I just want to finish this because like the lore got really really interesting at the end. And so I enjoyed the lore and stuff like that, and part of the world building. I wanted more of that. I would say my least favorite part was actually the romance, and not to say that it was bad. I just felt like, and there were good characters, but separately. Like I found them together kind of unappealing to me. And my favorite was the trio, like the three friends, and I wanted a lot more of them. And I'm hoping that if we do read the second book, that we're going to get more of their relationship because I really liked the three of them together.
So I liked this book more than I thought I was going to. I have a lot of similar feelings to Barbara, actually. I really enjoyed the world. I personally love urban fantasy. I've read quite a bit of that, so I think that's really cool. And all the different creatures and the just the lore of what's going on. I wanted to know more. And so yeah, really enjoyed the characters, really enjoyed the idea of what was happening. Agree with Barbara that the middle got a little bit dry because it was more about the two main characters like romance and love growing, and it's not that it was bad or that I just like gross romance, but I found myself not very interested in that part of the story. Their characters were super interesting separately, but I just personally didn't think that their romance and that part of their relationship was very compelling to me personally. But like Barbara said, also I got sucked back in at the end because it gets really interesting and you find yourself like, oh, what I want to know. No spoilers. So I want to know all these things about all these different characters, and it leaves you with cliffhanger stuff. So I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would. It was pretty good.
I have a follow-up question for you guys before I say my part. Do you feel like if the romance had been more subtle, that it would have been more palatable, or do you feel like just in general it was boring?
Like just the romance aspect?
Yeah, because both of you kind of said, okay, like in the middle, while their like relationship
Mhm.
romance part was like, and that you found it uninteresting, but that the characters were interesting separately. Was it more so just the way that it was presented? I'm trying to talk without spoilers.
Right. So I don't dislike romance. I feel like people might I actually do enjoy romance. So that's not an issue for me. I just felt like it's funny because I was actually wanting her to hook up with Lorcan.
With Lorcan, yes.
Yes. Like I felt like they had more of a sexual like tension to them
I'm
than
waiting
her
for it in the second book.
yeah,
I'm
than
waiting for
her
it.
and oh gosh, what's his name?
Graves.
Graves. Sorry, I want to say like something else. But so I wanted her to kind of hook up with him because I was like, dang, like I felt like that push and pull because this was supposed to be a enemies to lover, but I didn't see the enemies aspect to her and Graves at all. Like, okay, yes, like you broke into his home and then he kind of was like, no, no, but after that, yeah, shame, shame. But like after that, I didn't really get that tension and so I was actually more interested. I was hoping she would hook up with Lorcan. So I don't know. I just feel like maybe they were better off not. I don't know. Does that make
That's fair.
sense?
I just more was wondering, like, if it was I would not by any stretch of the imagination call this smut necessarily,
Mm.
but I know that like neither of you are into that genre, and so I didn't know how much of that turned you off to
So
like
so
the
no, it wasn't that. It was
Yeah.
so the middle section of the book, without getting into any spoilers, involved a lot of planning, and I found myself really invested in the planning and the training stuff,
Mm.
and then it was like, oh, now we're pulling away for like some romance, and like it's not that it wasn't boring or
it
like
was just like back
it
to the
was just
battle.
yeah, it was just back the other stuff was more not the battle, but the other stuff was more interesting to me.
I just felt like it was a little insta love. And I'm not a fan of that type of a trope. I'm really not. Like I
That's
really
fair.
like more of a build up but like from page 1 she's like, "Ooh, he's so hot and sexy and I can't control myself." And I'm like, "Okay, bitch, really?" So I think, and that's why with Lorcan, she's like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "Yes, girl, get him."
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. I would echo what you guys had said as far as like what I thought about it, but I liked it, I think, pretty much throughout. There were some instances, and it's hard to know because I do the audiobooks, whether it was just like my ADHD, like I was distracted. But there were some instances where I was like, ah, shit, I wasn't even paying attention to that whole section. So I had to go back and re listen, which could be a me problem, but also sometimes is like maybe it's a little bit dry through that part. And so it's not as exciting and I'm not paying as much attention.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some of those throughout, but I can't like identify or nail down specific, like, oh, during this part, I was less interested. I felt like I was invested in all of it.
All right, so like always, we're not going to go into our individual ratings for now. Got to wait till the end for that. But our group score for this one was a 7.2 out of 10. So, knowing that, would you recommend this book? Good question. I think mostly yes. I think that I would recommend it. I think that a lot of the people that I recommend books to, I'm not sure if some of them read like the romantasy or
That was a big pause. I thought you just said they don't read, and I'm like,
sorry.
oh.
No, I'm not sure if they read romantasy. Absolutely what this is. And so maybe with that caveat. But I would also say that compared to some of the other things that I've heard about in romantasy, because I feel like I've read some romantasy, but I feel like I haven't read what Lauren refers to or other people refer to as like smut. And so this obviously doesn't qualify as that. So maybe I would recommend it more freely. I don't know. I liked it. So yeah, I think generally I would recommend it.
I obviously would recommend it since I picked it. I mean, I guess that's not true because sometimes I pick books that I don't even end up liking. But this one worked out for me. I would recommend it. I think I have some people that I know are super uncomfortable with like any sexual scenes in books. So for those friends, I would probably just give like a hey, it's about the equivalent of Fourth Wing. It's nothing crazy, but there are some scenes.
That's what I would compare it to. This is a little more graphic, I think, than Fourth Wing was,
Maybe slightly.
from what I remember. Because I've read a couple Sarah J. Maas books, but Throne of Glass for the listeners, make sure it's clear, because I've heard the other one's more smutty. And then Fourth Wing, and I think this was probably the most. I was telling Barbara, probably the most graphic like sex scenes that I've read in a fantasy book.
Yeah, I put it on par with Fourth Wing. Just maybe, I guess now that you mention that, maybe slightly more graphic, but nothing Nothing compared to some of the ones that I've read. Like, everybody's heard me talk about the barbarians. So, but yes, I would recommend it in the abstract. I think it would appeal to people that are more like romantasy, but also people that like you guys who tend to lean more towards fantasy, because I think the world building was solid. I think the characters were solid. If you can look past, like, if you're super opposed to like any romantic tropes, like if you can look past it, I still think it's a good read. But
So I don't think I actually have read books that are considered romantasy. I off the top of my head, this might yeah, I don't think so. At least not none of like the big main ones or anything like that. So I guess I would recommend it to anyone who wants to read romantasy because honestly, well, I can't say that. I don't know if this is better than the other ones. I have no idea. I don't have anything to compare it to. I was invested in like the fantasy aspect and stuff, and I kind of wish there was more of it. I feel like the magic system is a little rudimentary. Like there wasn't a lot going on, and I was curious to have like more of it actually. So maybe I shouldn't say it was rudimentary. Like it was there, but like it wasn't like a lot. It was kind of like a passive, at least because the main. Never mind, I can't say that either. I'll try not to spoil stuff. Angry noises.
She'll get to that in the second half for sure.
Right. I mean, so I would recommend it to people who enjoy romantasy. I feel like this is a good one to grab because I think it's on par with like what you guys mentioned, Fourth Wing and then the other lady. So I guess for people who enjoy that kind of stuff, yeah. I have nothing to compare the smut, or I guess not smut, the sex scenes or whatever to. So I thought it was fine. Like wasn't like, oh no, clutching my pearls. But I understand some people actually might think that's a little too much because it's not. I mean, it is kind of not graphic, but like it's not like it doesn't fade to black. We'll just say that.
this
Like,
would be like a 2 chili pepper on the 5 chili pepper scale, I would say.
oh, really? A 2?
I would say, yeah.
Oh, dang! I thought it would
Yeah.
be like a 3 or something. No?
I think, because I think Fourth Wing is also a 2. I
Huh?
think.
So
Okay.
by that scale, then is like
Let me
one
do
chili
some research
pepper
on that.
an R-rated
Yeah.
movie,
Okay,
and
no,
two chili peppers
time out,
is soft
time out. So
porn.
we've all read the Prior to the Orange Tree and then the night of the fallen night, day of fallen night, I think it is whatever, the second one.
You said it at the end there, Day of
Yeah.
Fallen Night.
That those kind of have sex scenes. I would say those are extremely mild compared to this. Cause they're very like there's no like it's kind of like it doesn't fade to black, but like it doesn't talk about body parts, if that makes sense. You guys read the books. What do
Yes,
you think?
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this
But
was
the only
definitely.
book I've read that's in this category that has body parts and anatomy discussed was Fourth Wing, but I
Mm.
thought it was not as graphic as this book, personally.
I hate using the word graphic because I feel like it like intones like something. I don't know.
So here's a scale that I just found, and I don't know. Now that's just on Reddit. I'm going to do some research with my more smutty friends and see.
More smutty friends.
Well,
Oh no.
smut loving friends. I have friends that like this is their genre and this is what they
Right.
do. So I think on a scale of like vanilla to like 5 red hot chili peppers, I'll figure out where this falls.
So would you say then like the Prior of the Orange Tree and those were like what, a 1?
Yeah. Or
See, but
even
I
like,
feel like a 1 to a 2 is a huge jump.
It
I
took
wouldn't I
one
wouldn't
Google
even
search. There's a whole website. It's
I
called
wouldn't even put Priory
romance.io.
on it.
Oh, see, but I would because technically there are sex scenes.
But they're not like spicy. They're not explicit ones.
No, they're not. So that doesn't even count then?
I don't
Is
know.
that how-
Michael, what'd you find?
So this book is 3 flames out of
Oh,
5
Okay.
on
See,
this
that's
website.
what
That is
I would've said
allegedly
3.
a Steam rating guide or Steamy or Spice guide.
Mm.
3 out of 5 is, so let me just read the scale to you so you have an understanding
Okay.
what I guess it is. So one flame is meaningful glances and perhaps a kiss, but no sex on or off the page.
Huh. Okay.
2 flames, behind closed doors. At least one intimate scene occurs, but without the reader present. So fades to black, like what you were talking about before, Barbara.
Oh, this is not how I would have played
3
it.
flames. At least one intimate scene with the reader present. Euphemistic language for act and body parts. I would think that doesn't qualify. I would say this is probably
No,
a 4
that
based on
that
that.
would that would be
Actually, it literally
pirating.
has to be 4 because the 4 is explicit open door, at least 2 intimate scenes, which this book has,
Right.
explicit language with a variety of sexual acts, which this book also has. So 4 spice. 5 spice is explicit and plentiful. Several explicit scenes, a variety of adventurous acts dotted throughout the book.
Huh. I don't know if I agree with that one. I feel like 1 and 2 is like not right.
That doesn't
Personally.
drive with what my friends have talked about, but
Yeah.
like I don't know, there could be a bunch of different
This is just one website
ones.
that I found that seems to be all about rating the
I
I
don't know
romance
if I
think
levels
agree
of
with that.
books.
I think it could be though, like on if you're thinking about normal romance versus like slut category, because
Right.
like in my mind, this would be a 4 on the normal romance.
Right.
Like if you're thinking like, oh, just like a beach read like
Right.
romance, because there are sex scenes in those too sometimes.
Right.
It's
Like
usually not very
Stephen
explicit.
King.
They're
Stephen
very
King
like
has sex in his
romantic and
books.
they're very subtle and they're still sex scenes, but
Right.
they're respectful, I guess.
Right.
And then if you look at like the smut rating scale, that's when you get like more vividly description, like
So I
I
would
don't
say
know.
if we're rating like movie based, Priory is like a PG-13 movie, right?
Yes.
Priory
This
on
would
this
be
website is 2 flames.
2 flames. Okay.
So 1 below this book we're talking about.
I don't know. Obviously, we're not.
We're
A
not
Day of
pros
Fallen
here.
Night, Barbara,
Yeah.
though, is 3 flames, which is on the same level
Really?
as the book
Do
we're
what
talking
is?
about. A Day of Fallen Night, the prequel.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't agree. I don't agree with this
This is
website
all
personally.
subjective based on who's rated this on this website, though.
Okay, well they're wrong.
I
Anyway,
just feel like you can't put this as a 3 and erotica as a 5. Like that is
yeah.
a big jump. And there
Huge
are
jump.
straight
Yeah.
up like smut, just straight erotica porn for your like listening ears or whatever. And this is nowhere close to that in my mind. So it just like seems like a big jump. But oh well.
Yeah.
That being
Anyway,
said, it's
yeah.
relatively mild spice when it comes to like super offensive smutty books, in my opinion.
moving on from that, for those of you leaving us, don't forget to give us a rating if you like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you're not already. At Badass Lit Pod is our handle. We would love to hear from you. If you've got a book you want us to read, let us know. Now, for a short preview of our next episode. Next month, we will be reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Lauren, do you want to give us a little preview?
This is a story about hunger. 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily. Her beauty is only outmatched by her dreams of escape, but Maria knows she can only ever be a prize or a pawn in the games played by men. When an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria makes a desperate choice. She vows to have no regrets. This is a story about love. 1827, London. A young woman lives an idyllic but cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Charlotte's tender heart and seemingly impossible wishes are swept away by an invitation from a beautiful widow, but the price of freedom is higher than she could have imagined. This is a story about rage. 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be her chance to be someone new. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world, leaving her old life behind. But after an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning her past, her present, and her future, Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. This is a story about life, how it ends, and how it starts. Such a beautifully written description.
I've actually started it and I'm liking it so far.
I haven't started yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
As am I. We were all excited for this one. This is on all 3 of our
Yep.
books to be excited about in 2025.
I have a feeling it's going to be depressing.
Right.
From what
Based on that,
I've read.
Well, and then like the common denominator in all of these little stories in this synopsis is all that like somehow they all get effed over by a man. Like, I don't know if that's what's actually going to happen, but
remember, the second part of this episode is going to be an in-depth look at the Wren and the Holly Library. So if you do want to read it, stop listening now and come back when you're done.
Nom Nom is fresh dog food made by real people who really care. They're purposeful and enthusiastic about giving your dog the best food for them and their health, so they can thrive and be their best. Nom Nom delivers fresh food made with whole ingredients backed by veterinary science. And science tells us that dog health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long, happy life. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Barbara and I have 2 dogs, Luna, a husky, and Quinny, a Shih Tzu mix. Our two dogs love the beef mash recipe, but to be honest, I'd say Quinny's favorite is the turkey fare. She drools when that comes out of the fridge. Yes, I know, Luna. I'm going to tell them about that right now. Luna is an extremely picky eater and always has been. She usually takes forever to warm up to new food, but not with Nom Nom. She dove in immediately. Both dogs seemed to have more energy, and Luna's stools were no longer soft. Your dog's health starts in the gut. A better diet means softer coats, more energy, better breath, and smaller, more consistent stools. Your dog can't tell you if they're healthy, but you can tell when their health improves. It's the easiest way to take the guesswork out of feeding your dog the best. Nom Nom meals are pre-portioned for your dog's exact caloric needs. Board-certified vet nutritionists are kind of a big deal, and Nom Nom has 2 on staff that work extensively to ensure everything gets sent out is the very best for your dog's livelihood. So how does Nom Nom work? You tell them about your pup, age, breed, weight, allergies, and protein preferences. Then they tailor a specific amount of individually packaged Nom Nom meals and send them straight to you. Store the meals in the freezer or fridge until it's mealtime. They'll give you specific instructions on how to transition your dog from foods like kibble to always fresh Nom Nom for best results. Watch your dog clean their dishes, dance for dinner, and overall thrive. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to a link in the description of this episode and then use our referral code BADASSLIT. That's BADASSLIT and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom.
Now, for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. So like always, we're going to start off the second half by figuring out who gets our Badass Character Award. Barbara, who is your nominee?
I feel like there's only really 2 main characters, and you only get the perspective of Kierse. So it's hard to like pick someone else because we didn't get a lot of other people like really involved except for her and Graves. So between them two, I'm gonna say her. So Kierse. Am I saying that right? I know it's the best part is there's literally in the book how she says her name, and I wish it was sooner because I was already like saying it in my head one way, and it's really hard to break a habit after you start saying it.
It's more Kierse.
Kierse?
Kierse.
Oh.
Kierse.
Kierse, not Kierse.
Kierse.
My bad.
Kierse.
Kierse.
Man, I'm torn. I think just because I can see the notes and I know that I'm not going to win, I'm going to say Graves because I did think that even with his many personality faults, he is. I mean, we're in the spoiler section. He's a god. Like he's a pretty badass character. He's incredibly powerful. I thought learning more about his abilities and stuff was really cool. It was neat to meet some other warlocks in the book too. We'll get into that later. But yeah, I think Graves.
I picked Kierse because I just think that she's a badass. I think that not only is she a badass because of what we discover about her with like her powers and like her magic being far superior to others in my opinion, but also like she had to reconcile with like basically just her entire past getting questioned, and like she doesn't know, like she has these big gaps in her memory, and like she has to figure out like what this new identity means and mesh it with her existing identity. And I just feel like she had a lot of things going on and she navigated all of it, and like a badass.
With 2 votes out of 3, Kierse gets the Badass Character Award for this episode. So speaking of Kierse, let's talk about our characters. Which one of you would like to go first and talk about Kierse?
So she is she's a highly skilled thief. So basically she's trained, like she's been doing it as a job from a young age by a rather abusive mentor. So she had a pretty traumatic childhood, which kind of forced her to be this like fiercely independent person. She eventually, like she doesn't realize, she just thinks she's very skilled at her craft. But she doesn't realize that really she has these magical powers that are allowing her maybe to do it with more ease than somebody that doesn't have those powers. Like, for example, even just getting into the Holly Library, there were magical wards in place that were supposed to prevent people from getting in, and she didn't even realize that she had like gotten past these magical barriers. She just thought, oh, I'm just like sneaking in. And so it makes you wonder how many times her powers unknowingly aided her career. if we can call it that. I don't know. Craft maybe is a better term, but
I think a lot because of her slow motion ability that she was
right.
using.
And she's just
So
like, oh, I just thought this was normal. It's like, well, I mean, there's a lot of things in my life that I didn't realize weren't normal
Your
until
ADHD is a
adulthood.
superpower.
Exactly. It is. Hey, it is a superpower in some ways. But yeah, so she initially was unaware of her abilities, but then she kind of discovers those parts of herself, and then she thinks she's gosh, a witch. Like, what did she think she was?
she thought
Warlock.
she was a warlock.
Warlock. Okay.
Yeah.
So then she thinks she's that. So then she starts training as that, and then does these like blood tests and medical things that basically show that she can't be that. She's got to be this other like super rare extinct wisp thing, which is super cool.
Will-o-wisp.
And this grants her obviously some really cool abilities, which just makes her a more valued asset to both Graves and also Lorcan, and kind of just everybody.
All right, I will talk about Graves. Graves is the monster in the book. Beginning of the book, Graves is introduced to us as the person that Kierse is going to go steal something from. And we come to find out that Graves is actually an incredibly old, incredibly powerful warlock who lives in this massive estate known as the Holly Library. He's very secretive. He's very smart. We learned that he's like his major warlock power is knowledge, so he's able to just absorb all sorts of things, and that's how he recharges his batteries is by reading and gaining knowledge. He is also deeply respectful, and it's a big thing for him. You show him respect, he'll think about showing you respect back. He enters into a pact with Kierse after she unknowingly breaks the monster treaty when she breaks into his house. And it turns out she's got just the powers he needs to pull off this heist that he has in mind to steal what we learned later on in the book was effectively a god weapon. And later in the book, you also find out that Graves is not just this normal run-of-the-mill warlock. He is also the Holly King, which is a what am I trying to say? Irish or Gaelic deity, and is locked in this conflict and has been forever with Lorcan, who we learn. Well, Barbara will talk about Lorcan in just a minute, but that's a little bit about Graves.
So Lorcan originally is someone who tries killing Kierse after he sees that she like broke into Graves' house and might have like set something up with him. And then he is more interested in her. I think just interested in her because Graves is interested in her, and then you find out why is because, like Michael mentioned, he's also he's a druid, right? And he and Graves are kind of like locked in this like never ending how do you say the world's like cycle?
Cycle, yeah.
But it's the word cyclical. Gosh, that's a big word for Emma. Battle. So like one is summer, one is winter. And
well, they're brothers too, right?
No, not like blood related.
Not right, I guess.
Yeah. No, not blood related, but like so they're like constantly in fights because one's like the Holly King, the other is the Oak King and stuff like that, and like then it gets into the whole mythology and that I thought that was really interesting. But he's not the big bad in this book because it's someone else, but he's like I feel like the overall big bad because like he's obviously going to be someone of interest in I think the next book, especially because him and Graves are fighting to get like the 3 items that they need. I think it's 3 items, like
it's four
magical items and stuff like that. So yeah, I think he's like the big bad. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I thought he was interesting. Personally, I wanted to know more about him.
He was a cool character. I think we're going to get more about him in book 2.
Yeah.
Even just because at the end Ethan goes to train with him. So
right. Can we talk about how like the 3 main characters, kind of 3 main Kierse, Graves, and Lorcan all had like cool names, and then you have Ethan and Nate. Like what is happening? Like I could not get past that. I was like,
come up with anything better.
Really? I was like, how basic can we sound? And everyone else has cool names, and then there's Nate and Ethan. Anywho, that's Lorcan. Jen and Ethan are Kierse's. How would you say that?
Kierse's
best friends. Yeah.
Okay, Kierse's 2 best friends. They kind of have like this pull towards one another. Like, is it Gen or Jen?
Jen.
Okay. Jen kind of found Kierse and then Ethan, and then they became BFFs. You don't get too much about them. I like that's who I was mentioning when I said the three of them. I thought they were super interesting, and I really enjoyed their friendship, and I wanted more of that. They were a bit of background, but then at the end you find out that they're like the holy trinity of things.
Which was really
So, which
cool.
was
Like,
really cool, and I'm really excited to see if that goes into the second book if we were to read that or whatever.
yeah,
But I like their friendship a lot, and I was actually thinking that we would get more of their friendship, and then we kind of did it, and I was kind of disappointed, and I'm not gonna lie,
yeah.
because I really enjoyed like their scenes that they had together.
It was funny. So that scene you just described, where like they come together to put their powers together to save Kierse. I got to the beginning of that description and was like, "Oh my god, this is about to end with like it's the power of
A
love and
friendship.
friendship." And
Your favorite.
then they made it so much cooler than that, which I was grateful for. But I was like, "Oh my god, that's literally going to be like the power of love saves everyone." Like, oh,
So when it comes to like mythology and stuff like that, I feel like I know a little bit of like Irish or Celtic or stuff, but not a lot. I've noticed like normally I feel like I know pretty much like when we're reading the stuff, but like I think that one like I know a couple of ones, but like this one's one I was not familiar with.
and that I looked up when I got to the point in the book where it was describing some of this. I looked it up, and I think the reason for that is that it's
Is
the
it
Holly
combo?
King and the Oak King are they're from like pagan and Wiccan
Oh,
traditions.
I see.
So it's not just Irish or
I see.
Celtic. It's bigger than that. So,
Mm,
and I'm not as familiar with all. There's a ton of
right.
pagan gods. Anyway, next character is King Louis.
He's the big bad that they're trying to steal the spirit from
Yeah,
essentially, and he's like a vampire from the underworld, not the underworld, but like they have an underworld in this area. I don't recall what it's called that they're trying to break
that's what
into.
they called it.
Oh,
Yeah,
the underworld, yeah.
yeah.
It's like the skeevy location where all like the monsters who don't want the monster treaty to be a thing hang
Hmm.
out. And
Yeah,
he's
it's like
top
a sub
dog.
basement underneath the New
Yeah,
York
like
City
he's top
subway.
dog in there, and that's he calls himself the king. And he's a vampire. That's pretty much who he is.
How does the alternate New York City setting, with its blend of human and monstrous elements, contribute to the story's atmosphere and themes?
So I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this story could have been written in any big city and it wouldn't really change. I feel like the overall story as far as like once again it has to like if this was written in Atlanta or like LA, I feel like the setting of New York didn't play a huge role, at least not yet for at least it didn't feel like that for me. I don't know if that did it for you guys. So I don't think it really contributed to the atmosphere or the themes cuz like if you can plop them in like Paris or I don't know, in Sao Paulo or like some other Hong Kong or somewhere else in a big city, metro city, like I don't think it changes anything, I think. That's just me though.
I would agree with that. I think that in so many books, especially New York City, like it becomes a character of its own in the book, and that definitely I agree with Barbara that this story could have been told in any major metropolitan city, and it would have as long as it had like the subway system and all that kind of stuff, since that was critical. I think it would have been could have been told the same. So it being a big city was really important to the story, but not necessarily being New York.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really the New York played a role because it needed to be like a big city, but I think it could have been like Los Angeles or like it could just as
Right.
easily have been another
I mean, I
um
think she was just trying to use
suburban or not
like
suburban but urban.
right, like
Yeah.
Times Square being like ground zero for like the monster war. I think
Yeah.
she was just trying to use like a big iconic space that everybody would recognize.
Yeah. I don't think it necessarily contributed a whole lot to much other than that. I think you could have put them in any similar big city and it would have been comparable.
All right, question number two. What are your thoughts on the dynamic between Kierse and Graves, especially given their contrasting backgrounds and beliefs? I thought their dynamic was actually pretty interesting. As this question says, that they are dramatically different people with dramatically different backgrounds, but you come to find out that some of it's the same. Like there's some crossover. Kierse was abandoned by her dad. Graves was sold by his father to like a traveling magic person, I guess, traveling merchant. So that they both have a lot of pain and sadness in their backstories. And so I think that they kind of connect a little bit through their shared trauma as some of that kind of comes out as they're talking to one another. But I thought their dynamic was interesting. He's obviously, do we know how old he actually is? Like I mean,
Yeah, kind of.
Hundreds of years old.
Like,
Basically, like
well, because she's so king, one of the kings, King Hen.
yeah,
I don't know.
King
I can't
Henry. She
remember.
did them. It was the 1500s. I know
Yes, it
he
was
was
the
at least alive
1500s, and he was at
then.
least alive. So we have a ballpark
he's real
area.
old.
So he's like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's like 500 and some years old. So, see, I mean, it's very, very different backgrounds. But I thought their dynamic was interesting. I think that at the beginning, he is like this, like very stoic, very like I keep everything inside, man of few words kind of character. And she's obviously the opposite of that in a lot of ways. She also is stoic to her in her own way, but she has a lot more comedy and a lot more. She gives him a hard time a lot, and I think that that part of the dynamic allowed it was interesting to see her kind of bring him out of his shell because we learned that he's been abandoned by pretty much everybody he's ever let in, and so she slowly starts to bring him out of his shell. And so it was interesting. I thought that their dynamic was really interesting to read just because they were such dramatically different people.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that, so I won't be redundant, but I felt like in my head I was just like, this is a trauma bond. Like this is not a healthy relationship. I mean, it has potential to maybe be healthy someday, but they're trauma bonding. They're it's like Fast and Furious. I think I don't remember what Barbara said that was called, but like a
Insta love.
insta love is that,
Mm-hmm.
which sometimes is not healthy. But I think their dynamic was interesting because I think they helped each other. Like they had enough, I mean, which arguably whatever. They they I guess impacted each other in ways that were productive for both of them, whether it was a little bit toxic at times or not. And I think I was invested in their romance. I though was also like Barbara in that I would have liked to see Larkin play a bigger romantic role because I felt like
Mm-hmm.
there was definitely some chemistry there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like they kind of had contrasting backgrounds, but like they both, like Lauren mentioned, they're trauma bonding because they both were like they felt abandoned and all this stuff. So that was kind of similar, but and then they kind of also struggled through when they were younger as far as like getting to where they are, and it made them both like really tough characters in the sense of like they're both supposed to be like standoffish and cold, but like she's really not. If you ask me, she says she is inside her inner monologue, but I didn't really get that from her because like it was insta love to her. She was like, oh, he's so attractive and I can't help but feel attracted to him, and it's like okay, but that's a bit of a gripe for me. Their beliefs, I mean, yeah, obviously, like she actually still has friends, whereas he seems to not. He kind of seems like a no. There's no kind of. He's a loner, and his best friend is like his personal. I don't want to call them servants, but they, I guess, are like what would you call them?
I
Personal
call like his
help.
butler.
Well, no, not his butler. His cook lady.
Oh yeah, I mean I guess you could say like his chef or his
Right.
cook.
I don't know, but like he doesn't have friends. Like
His friends are
really.
His
his
help.
employees. How about that?
Right. His friends are his employees, and that's not, like sure, okay, kind of, but like he's paying them. So, even though like the chef lady is like, "Oh, I like you," outside of the payment, but like she still has like family, kind of like found family, and I enjoy that, but not him so much.
How does the treaty between monsters and humans affect the characters and the overall plot?
So I think it obviously affects the plot because many of the things that happen, especially at the beginning of the novel, would be irrelevant if Kierse didn't unknowingly break the monster treaty or if the monster treaty didn't exist. So like it plays that role to kind of set the scene. I think it shows a divide between people and monsters of all varieties, which I think is reminiscent of biases, prejudices, in the world, things like that. It also just shows like the delicate balance between autonomy, freedom, and then control that's necessary to avoid history repeating itself. Because I feel like there was a lot of obviously problems with the pre-treaty days with violence and other things.
So I feel like for the overall world building, I think this part was the one that, and a little bit of the magic system for me was kind of lacking. And by lacking, I meant like I wanted more of it because I was intrigued by it and how this related. And obviously, it's mentioned quite a bit in the book, but it's a very surface level mention. I feel like we know that the humans didn't know that there were monsters, and all of a sudden these monsters came out, and it was like a horrible time because they were like, eating people and doing all these awful things to humans. So then the certain monsters, the quote unquote, I'm not trying to say they're good or bad, I'm just saying what the book is saying, the good monsters came up with this treaty and kind of forced it upon the other monsters so there would be more regulations between the humans and the monsters. And that's kind of all you get. You don't get much more than that. Like, you get this human lady, I think, who was like a rah-rah person for the humans, and then she kind of like dies, and you don't really know the significance of like why she's even mentioned, really, except for that. And so I just feel like it was a bit of a throwaway on certain things when it was just convenient to mention it. And I was intrigued by it, so I wanted to learn more. But like I said, I feel like it was very surface level, for me at least.
I don't have a whole lot to add on top of what you guys said on this one, but I will just say directly to Miss Lind, if you're listening to this podcast, which you're probably not, but if you are, and you have this story of the what happened in the Monster War and all of that in your head, I would read that. I would be very interested to read about what
I think
happened.
it'll come up in later novels. Like I
I hope
think they'll
so.
do like
I
This
a
is
want
a
more.
duology, right?
Trilogy.
flashback. I think there's
Oh, it's a
3.
trilogy?
There's
I
going
thought
to
it was
be
a
three. I
duology.
actually just looked that up on her website. She said it's going to be at least a
Oh,
trilogy.
So my
okay. So
prediction
maybe
is that
there's
she'll have
more.
like a flashback later on and we'll get to learn, hopefully.
Okay.
The little bit we got of the Monster War and that plot was very interesting. So I would love to read more about everything that happened around that. Anyway, though, for now, we'll move on to my next question. What did you think of the magical system in the book? Was it unique or reminiscent of other fantasy stories you've read?
Surprisingly, I haven't read unique. I feel like it's a bit unique in the sense that I haven't read one where it's like they're not waving a wand around and like magic is spewing all over the place, or like they're not mumbling incantations. Like, it seems very, the ones that we got to see seems very like innate, like it's an ability that they have that happens, and if you're just walking around, you're not really going to notice it that it's happening to you, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like flashy magic, and I'm okay with that. Like, I actually was intrigued by the magic system, but once again, I wanted more of it. I feel like we got a little bit of it. Like, we only got the warlock's abilities because obviously Graves is a warlock, and so like we know for him, like he has knowledge. But it's like, okay, so what does that mean exactly? And it's not really explained what that means, except for the fact that like he reads books to replenish him using his powers. But she said like his other power is like reading. He doesn't like it when she says reading people's minds, but like it seems like it's that type of a thing. Like, he touches them and like he gets like surface level, which has been used in like so many things. But
Yeah, it's
like
like
it
the
was
detect thought
unique,
spell.
right?
Yeah.
But like it's unique in the sense of like how he replenishes that, and that kind of a thing. But like I'm saying, like we don't get too much of it. We just know like if he touches someone, that's how he kind of quote unquote raise their mind, and that's kind of it. But like he seems to have other stuff, and obviously like they can make wards up and that, but we don't see them doing that. We don't know how that works really. For Kierse, hers was like we didn't know what she was, and they maybe thought she was a warlock or something. So, and then we come to find out A, she's not a warlock, and B, like her power works differently where she absorbs the magic. It's not like she's blocking the magic. It would have been interesting to kind of find out like other things. So is it just because it's not every monster that has magic? It seems like it's maybe just a few people. So it looked like maybe it was just warlocks. But then obviously what Kierse is, which is a will-o-wisp, which it was familiar with, but not in this at all. Like will-o-wisps, I thought were like creepy ghost things, kind of, or little balls of like light. But so I was a little bit confused with the magic system because it felt like there was more, but we didn't get a lot of it. Like Lorcan, he's a druid, So he does obviously magic, but we have no idea what kind of magic he does. But like, I guess it makes sense now because it's a threefer, so I can't like want all of it in one book. So I get it, but I definitely wanted more, and I feel like better explained. I felt like it was a bit unique in how she did it, because like she took elements of like what you see in a lot of things, but she made it her own, and I enjoyed that aspect of it.
I definitely agree with that. I liked the magic system, and I liked how she took, I guess, tropes in some ways and kind of spun them and made it, like you said, made it her own unique thing. I really thought it was neat that like they all recharged their power differently. So like Graves was knowledge, Kierse was like stealing from people.
Stealing.
That's what
I forgot about the
recharged.
magic powder too. That was like
And then
legit.
yeah, she was really cool. That was she was a warlock also.
Yeah. But see, that's what I'm saying. It seems only
Kingston,
like warlocks that have power or
it's
magical
not. It's
abilities.
not because they at one point when they find out that Kierse is not a warlock, it's like an offhand sentence, but she says, "So then what am I? Like, am I a witch? Am I this?" She
Mm,
names off like some other stuff, and he's like, "Oh, no, no, you're none of
yeah,
those
that's
things."
true.
Which implies like either like that's ridiculous to think that, or those things exist in this world too.
Well, wasn't that one lady, the doctor? She was a witch.
She has magic. But I don't think he called her a witch.
Oh, I thought she was a witch. I thought he called her a witch. It doesn't
Malfi?
I
matter, but
honestly can't
Yeah.
remember.
yeah.
Anyway, I feel like Barbara was saying, like this book, you kind of we could just dipped our toes into the magic system, and I think that was likely intentional because Kierce and the rest of the world don't really know that magic exists, and the warlocks and everybody keep it that way, and so we're kind of getting exposed to this new world with her since she's the primary character. And so that was kind of interesting. And but like Barbara said, I'm hoping in the future books we get a lot more. Like I want to know what the druids are and how they're different than the warlocks, and if there are witches, and what a will of the wisp really is in this world, and where her magic comes from. And Ethan's a druid, but what is Jen? Is she also a druid since she's healing people? We don't
She's a
know.
priestess.
Priestess, that's right.
What
So
does that mean? Who
what does
knows?
that know? Yeah, hopefully we find out some more.
Who's to know?
But I did really enjoy the magic system, and I did think that while it is reminiscent of other books I've read, it's also very different.
Yeah, I think in this genre, it would be impossible not to have at least some elements be reminiscent of other fantasy tropes. I think just because there's so many out there. I liked the magical system, though. I thought the monster treaty concept was interesting. I thought, even though it was predictable, that Kier's figuring out that she also has magical powers, and then the whole journey to figure out what slash who she is, I guess, that was unique, especially like the whole concept of a will-o-wisp. Like I know Barbara said she'd heard of it. I had no concept of it, so I thought, wow, like that's cool, because she thought, oh, it'd be really cool to be a warlock, and then she is better than a warlock, arguably. Yeah, I mean, I thought I liked that. Oh, the whole like wish dust concept was intriguing too. Like I don't think, at least for me, I don't recall reading other fantasy novels where like drug use, magical drug use was a thing.
Right? It's like,
Um,
let's take drugs but make it
yeah.
cool.
So I thought that was interesting. There was a lot of, I guess, like Michael said, things that were reminiscent of other things, but she spun it off to where it was kind of unique to this book. That being said, like Barbara said, I think a lot is left to the imagination, which I can appreciate in some stances, but I feel like I I do want to know more. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more in depth in later books.
How well do you think the story balanced romance with adventure and intrigue? I guess the balance was fine. I wasn't opposed to the balance. Like I was saying earlier in the non-spoiler part, I thought that the middle of the book was the gist of it is that they're planning this heist to steal the spear from King Louis the vampire in the underworld. And that all was really interesting. And I wanted to learn more about that. I wanted to learn more about the underworld and King Louis and the heist and her training montages that we saw. That was all really cool. So I think because I enjoyed all that so much, it felt like it was like a hard cut to like, all right, now let's have some romance. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But like I was like, all right, let's get back to to the planning of the heist and the other interesting cool lore stuff. I just personally wasn't invested in Graves and Kierce's romance. But I don't think that it took away from the story or anything like that. It just it felt like those parts that I guess some people might think are the exciting parts for me, like that took away from what was more exciting, which was planning and getting ready for all the stuff and learning more about the world.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it took away from anything, but I do think that, and I think this might be kind of, we talk about this in a later question, so we might be redundant later. But yeah, I think that the balance was fine. If anything, I think the romance was kind of sprinkled in throughout. Like, it didn't feel overpowering to me. Obviously, it was pretty explicit, which we've already talked about. But I guess, like, the quantity wasn't, I guess, derailing for me. I don't think it was by far the most exciting part of the book. I think it just kind of was. And I think you could probably take it out and I would still have enjoyed the book. But I do think that I enjoy some type of like a romance plot, whether it be with Larkin or, you know, whatever. But it wouldn't need to necessarily be graphic in description to have it be effective, I guess. But I thought the balance was fine.
So I have a feeling, because like I mentioned, I don't believe I've read romantasy novels. I feel like for what this is supposed to be, which is a romantasy, I feel like this is balanced. I feel like it has a good balance between the fantasy elements of it and all that and the romance aspect of it. But like I said, you guys can let me know if I'm off on that, because I have not read those types of books. I tend to read more just fantasy with sometimes there's romance on it, but it's like a very like 10% type thing. Whereas this one, I feel like it is 50-50. I thought it was fine for that. I knew what I was getting into. So I didn't feel like there was too much romance or not enough adventure or the fancy aspect of it or anything like that. Like, I kind of wish there was more. I was okay with the book being longer, to be honest with you. Like traditional fantasy novels tend to be, you know? So I honestly thought that the balance was fine. I didn't have a problem with that.
All right, next question. Would you survive in this world? Why or why not?
I put that I'd like to think that I survive, but maybe that's just me being overly confident. But I would want to
We're all
be
gonna
a
die.
wisp. Well, we probably all would die, really. But I would want to be a wisp if I could choose, because that would improve my odds at least, because I could, you know, just suck in the powers of the people around me and
I was gonna say, can we say what we would want to be
Yeah,
as well? Because I already have an answer.
yeah, I think that that's good. That gives me my best odds of survival. Now, does that mean guaranteed survival? Absolutely not.
I mean,
But
I feel like you would be more prone to dying because there's only one left because everyone else decided to murder them. So just don't tell anyone.
that's true. But if you can keep it a secret, then like
Mhm.
you have the power.
That's true. Literally. By sucking the other powers. So, am I the main character? Because I feel like I would survive if I was. If I'm a human? No, absolutely not. If I had a choice, though, of
you're
like
a hot dog vendor in Times Square on the day the
on
Monster War
D-Day,
started.
Barbara's hot dog stand along
and
with
you know
her
what, that
cheeks
hot dog
flattened.
stand would still be standing. No, but if I could pick, I'm curious about the priestess. Like, I'm curious about Jen's powers because I find that interesting. I was really invested in hers, so because I love me knowing the future, you know. So I would be interested in being the priestess, and I feel like if I was the priestess, then yes, I would survive.
So I don't know if I would survive. I think I probably would have gotten caught up in the Monster War and gotten killed. But if I did
R.I.P.
survive,
Michael.
RIP, I think it'd be kind of cool to be, probably a warlock. I feel like the warlocks were the coolest from my perspective. I thought that their powers and stuff were really unique. If not a warlock, then probably a vampire, but not one that worked for King Louis, like one of the vampires that abided by the treaty and went to like the fake blood bars and all that stuff.
Yeah, locally resourced blood and not
Yes, locally
Yeah,
resourced.
exactly.
not not
Shout out True Blood.
ethically resourced.
So yeah, I think that maybe I'd survive. And if I did survive, those are the two types of monsters that I would want to be.
I like how no one wants to be a human in this world.
Why
Absolutely
in
not.
a
I don't
world
know why
full of
Absolutely,
anybody
I'm
would.
already a
supernatural
human. I don't
things?
want to be a human in
Exactly.
a fantasy world.
Exactly.
If I had the choice.
Let's see. Next question. Graves is a complex and morally gray character. What did you think of him, and did your opinion shift throughout the book?
So yes, my opinion did shift throughout the book for him. I originally thought he was interesting. I really liked him. I liked his powers. I don't care about the sex appeal. That's a whatever. Like all these men are like supposed to be like godsends in these books. So that is after a while you're just like, okay, cool, whatever, you know? So obviously he's attractive, but I thought he was interesting. I enjoyed his character and stuff like that. I was not a fan of him after the ending. I thought like after everything, I don't understand why he didn't tell her, because like they had this whole little powwow after the fact of like opening up their souls about their crappy past and all this other stuff, and like homeboy, that was like a prime moment for you to be like, hey, like I might know what you are. Like I don't understand why he kept that hidden. And then obviously she's supposed to be like his downfall and he's in love with her, but like if you truly love someone, like you don't lie to them. So wow, Michael, really. So yeah, not I was not a fan of that. And I'm not gonna lie, love me Graves or whatever, but I actually thought Lorcan was more interesting. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because like we only get Kierse's point of view, and so like she's like, oh, Graves is so great and all this lovey dovey and blah blah with him, and like even though she's like, oh, he's so standoffish, but like he really didn't seem that standoffish towards her, so I don't really know what Homegirl was talking about either.
Barbara, Lorcan's more interesting because he's more dangerous and less accessible.
Okay, maybe that's why. Maybe I have a thing for that. I don't know. Who's to know? But I just thought Lorcan was more interesting than Graves. But I did like him at the beginning, and then I just did not understand like the reasoning of what he did, especially keeping a lot about stuff hidden from her.
So I liked Graves. I thought Graves was a really, really interesting character. Unlike Barbara, I guess I got more interested in him later as the book went on, as we learn more about him, and it becomes more than just this like stoic like
I didn't
beast
say
from
that.
Beauty
I
and the
was
Beast
at the very
character.
end. The very end, I was not a fan. The betrayal, Michael. The betrayal.
I didn't like the betrayal either, but I understood why he did the betrayal.
Why?
Graves has
As a
been
man,
alive
why? Why'd he
for
do it, Michael? Why?
it's not as a man. It's he's been
No,
alive
I'm
for
saying you as a man, you would know better because you're in the psyche of a man because you are a man. So why
You
would a
already
man do
said it,
this?
Barbara, because
I already said
knowledge
it.
is
I mean,
power.
Because
literally,
knowledge
I
is
typed in the
power.
chat. She laughed her knowledge is power. Graves has been alive for 500 and some years. Knowledge and secrets have been his currency.
But you
He's
say you love
always
someone and then you bitch about people leaving you. Like, homeboy, this is why. This is why people be leaving you. Because you be lying to them and then you're like, oh, I love you. And then you're like, oh, just kidding. Yeah, nah.
he always plays his cards close to his vest, and I think he continued to do that to his detriment here. Obviously, like Kierse felt hugely betrayed, and that drove a huge wedge in
Good.
their budding relationship. But I liked him overall, and I really liked the interlude at the end where he was all pissed off that he lost both of these things that he wanted, and then he gets the call from like one of his informants that maybe he's got a lead on the cauldron, which is one of the other magical items that'll probably kick off his story in the next book. But anyway, yes, I liked Graves.
I liked Graves, but I love a good body. I also liked Lorcan for the same reason. I think that he obviously
I
is
thought you
like
said body and not baddie.
baddie.
I was like, oh, okay, Laura. Sorry.
For clarity, the body is less important than the attitude, the baddie. But yeah, I liked Graves. Obviously, I also was pretty salty with him at the very end for all of the secrecy and betrayal. I can see where Michael's coming from on that, that's kind of his default setting. But, that's probably why he's
And
going
just
to
for the
be
record,
doomed to toxic trauma bonded relationships and never true
probably
love
was not
because,
saying that's like a good thing or a good quality of his. By the way, just that like he's been
yes.
in secrets and
But
needed to keep secrets his whole
no, but
life.
here's the problem. Like, realistically speaking, they don't know each other that well to be like throwing the I love you so much and then you go and do this kind of crap. Like, I'm just
Yes.
saying. She
It's
has every reason to
manipulative.
be salty because it's like she pretty much bared her soul to him and like didn't after they did their whole powwow and didn't have any secrets from him and he still did. And so like I'm sorry, but if you're like, "Oh, I love you," and you're doing that, nah, man, that's not true. Not true love.
Definitely an element of manipulation for
Yep.
personal gain
Yep.
there. We'll see how that plays out for him. My opinion didn't really shift throughout the book on him until like the very end, but I still don't hate him as a character or anything. I just think I am curious to see what the author will do in the future with that
He better
because
grovel.
yeah, I mean he's gonna have to. Or what I think what I would like even better is if this then pushes her into the arms of Lorcan.
Lorcan,
Because
yes,
at
girl,
least
yes, me too.
All right, next question. The library itself is rich in symbolism. What do you think the Holly Library represents? Knowledge, power, memory, or something else? I mean, kind of all of those things, right? It's literally for Graves, it's the representation of his power and his main recharging thing and his ability is knowledge, and so it's both power and knowledge for that. I think that it's something else too, though, because once it's revealed near the end of the book that Graves is actually the Holly King, I started kind of looking into it, and there's a very famous Irish author who specialized in Gaelic mythology, whose name is dun, 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 Robert Graves. And so I think that possibly the Graves character was based off of him
Well,
a little
Graves
bit.
isn't his real name, remember? What's his
Right, but
face?
I think his
Lorcan called
chosen,
him something else.
but I think he chose that
Oh,
name
I
because of the
understand.
real
Like
life person Robert
symbolically.
Graves, because
I
he's from
understand.
Ireland. Yeah,
I see, I
so
see, I see, I see. I see
that's what
what
I
you're
meant.
saying. I thought you meant the author
No,
chose
no,
his
no, no,
name.
no,
And I was like, well, yeah.
no.
Like
Well, I mean, the author probably chose it for the same reason that he chose it, because this takes place in the real world. So he might
Right,
have
right,
even
right.
known the real Robert Graves, because Robert Graves, well, he did. He definitely might have. He was alive from 1895 to 1985. So there's a good
He is
chance
him.
that would be kind of funny. The
Surprise.
surprise. But so I think the library represents all of that. I mean, the book after that reveal and doing a little bit of research about the Holly King and the Oak King, and the pagan rituals and different things around those characters. There's a ton of symbolism in the book that I did not pick up on until looking at that and then learning a little more about it and thinking back like, oh God, okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I said this before, I think the world she created and all like the weaved in pagan stuff that she put in here is awesome. I loved it. I finished that and I read a little bit about it and I want to read more about the actual like the mythology and the pagan religions, and I want to learn more about what's going on there. So it piqued my interest for sure.
yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot to add for this one. I think for the sake of time, I don't need to ramble. I concur for once.
I mean, obviously I feel like it's Graves's like happy place, you know? Like that's because obviously his power is literally knowledge, and so like I get it. Like I would totally want his library. I'm jealous, you know? And I think that's maybe where his power is the like more protected and all that stuff, because I remember her always mentioning how like it's like you can see the holly markings of his magic wards and stuff like that on in what am I trying to say, like entrance of into the library and all that
The
jazz. So
symbolism.
yeah, but I don't have much else to say. Like I think it's all those things and then some more for him personally.
Final question. What did you think of the ending?
Like the very last chapter, or no, I'm just kidding. I enjoyed the ending. I was like, yes, I couldn't at one point I was just like, I want to know, because it was kind of like a lore dump of like everything that like all the answers that you kind of wanted, or at least most of them, like who she was, the lore behind Graves and Lorcan, and like why they hate each other, and who Jen and what's the other homeboy's name?
Ethan.
Ethan
Ethan.
were like what they were and stuff like that. And so like it really, I was intrigued by that and I wanted to know more. And I even told Michael, I was like, at first I was like, nah, I don't really think I'm interested in reading like the second book, when I thought it was just a duology. And now I'm like, actually I would be in like if we got to see those characters having adventures and getting to like find out more about their powers and stuff, I'm all in. If it's just gonna be another one with her and Graves, like, maybe not, you know? But it maybe if it's her and Lorcan, then yes, I want that. So yeah, I think it depends. Like it left me enough where I was like, okay, I'm I'm intrigued. Like, I would definitely pick up the second one if these conditions were met, or if I knew like we would get at least some of those stuff that I want. If it's just a kind of a repeat of her and Graves do another heist, I think I would maybe not be super interested in that. But I enjoyed the ending. I thought it was nice to see her put her foot down with Graves and be like, nah, like, yes, I love you, but like, you did me wrong and did me dirty, and I need some space, even though we only know each other for 2 months. It's fine. That's completely normal to fall in love that quickly.
As you can see, Barbara is her favorite thing is love at first sight. That's like her favorite trope.
Like, let's
So
be honest. I don't think this was even a whole month that they knew each other, because I remember
It
him
was
like,
very short.
yes, because he was like,
pretty quick.
oh, like, this is the heist, and we have this, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's not like that's a month away, and I'm like, okay, and a month away, and y'all found each other and loved each other that quickly. I mean, I guess.
I liked the ending. I thought it set up the future books well. It, like Barbara said, it answered enough but left enough dangling threads to keep you wanting to know more. And then for me personally, because I really enjoyed like the lore of this world that she's, even though it's like takes place in the real world, this alternate reality she's created, I want to know more about that. And so I hope that we get a lot more about, you know, the monster war and the treaty and some of the clearly defined like political machinations are behind all of this that we get kind of just hinted at but don't get a lot of in this book. Maybe we will in the future, I don't know. It's definitely implied that Kierse is headed to Europe, so I don't think we're going to get any more about what happened in New York City in book 2, at least not at first, but I don't know,
It
we'll
better
see.
come as a flashback, or I'm gonna be salty about it.
What, her adventure?
No, just like I want like a preface. Like I want
Oh,
I want to
mhm.
learn more about the New York War,
Mhm,
the
mhm,
monster
mhm.
war thing
Like a
that happened.
prequel and stuff like that with a character that
Yes.
was like in the thick of that. I would be very
A
interested in
prequel
that.
told from
Or
the
even
perspective of the revolutionary, the girl who was
yeah.
the statue.
Yeah, but like we
That
know
would
that she
be,
Mhm.
dies, but I
That's
guess.
so she
true.
can die. It could be like Rogue One, they all die at the end.
Oh
Or
my
even
god.
just do one of the time jumping things where they're like
Mm,
present day, but then they're like, oh, let's look back at
mhm,
what
mhm,
happened.
mhm.
We shall see. It's obviously setting us up for the next novel, this ending, which I both enjoy and also loathe because I do like closure, but I also think that I got just enough closure for this to balance the open endedness. It wasn't like some cliffhangers where it's like, you don't even know if they're dead or alive. Like, so yeah, I think that it definitely leaves you wanting more intentionally, so that you will grab the next one. So,
What I was gonna say was it felt like it was an ending to this chapter of the story with a
Hmm.
little bit of just enough to continue on the story for like, okay, now what happens next?
Yep,
You know, it's
I
not one of
agree.
those books where like you don't get an overall story and it's like you're still learning about all this stuff. It's like it's a self-contained, like if you were just to read this, you would feel like, "Oh, okay, I've got a basis of it, you know, to where the second story is going to build upon that with more."
All right, so individual scores for this one. Barbara, what did you give it?
So I gave it a 7, and the reason why I did that, and I forgot to mention it earlier in any of the other questions, but it didn't really seem to fit on the other questions really, except for the beginning where then I forgot to say that, long winding it. But the one of the other things I forgot to mention was I feel like if you were to remove the sexual aspects of this novel and maybe I don't think this wasn't too graphic in like the violence. I don't think,
No, I
but
didn't
like
think
so if
so.
you were to move the sexual content and maybe I don't even think like anything else really, this would read as a young adult to me. And you know what? I'm not even going to say that. Not even a young adult. I'm not even gonna say that. It read very simple, if that makes sense. I'm trying to describe it without not being like rude, because I feel like there are better written young adult novels than this. So how
It
would
was
you
very
just say
easy
that?
to read.
It was well, it's not even
It
that.
was
Like
easy to
it's not.
follow,
And no,
not super
it's that's
complex. It was simple.
I wouldn't say that. It's how I don't know how to describe this. Like if you were to compare this novel to like what we are going to be reading to V.E. Schwab, like the writing style obviously is very different, but like I didn't have to look up words in this novel. Like I didn't have to really sit and kind of like digest what she was trying to say, if that makes sense. Like I hate once again saying simple because I don't like using that word, but I don't know how else to say it. Maybe
I think you mean some people would describe it as like an easily digestible story.
right, like very
Yeah.
basic, you know?
I thought the
Like
same thing about like Fourth Wing, where it could be a YA if you took the sex out.
right. And I don't like saying that because as someone who loves YA, there are YA books that are more complex than this. So like that's why when I first started saying that I was like, "Oh, you know what? I don't want to say that because there really are. I've read some like I love YA and so like there's very complex things in YA. It just seemed like the sentence structures, the verbiage, the words used, they weren't super eloquent, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to say that without sounding like a bitch. So I'm trying not to because it was fine. Like I didn't mind that. It kind of, as someone who's read fan fiction when I was younger and stuff, it kind of read, and not to say because there's some really great fan fiction writers out there who honestly I feel like should be published authors, but it kind of seemed like one of those because I felt like I saw a lot of some mistakes and errors and stuff like that, and that kind of bothered me. And that's not on the writer. I think that's on the editor personally. And but like the overall like themes and that kind of stuff, I felt like it was kind of just a basic book. That was another issue I had with it. Not an issue, kind of, sort of in the beginning until I got more used to it. I think, but yes, it's long-winded answer, but I meant to put that somewhere else. My bad.
So I gave it a 7.5. Like I said earlier, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I do agree with Barbara that it's an easily digestible book, but I think that for me anyway, I enjoy reading those books from time to time. There are some books that I love reading that like I feel like I can't listen to the audiobook because they're so complex. I need to actually be like looking at it on paper. This was not one of those. And that's totally okay. I really enjoyed it. I think an easily digestible book is not a bad thing. So I liked it a lot. I do also agree with Barbara that she mentioned like if you turn those two sex scenes into like fade to black moments, this would easily be probably not YA, maybe new adult because it still has some other adult content. But yeah, if you cut those out, or again, not cut them out, fade to black them, or whatever the thing we said earlier when we were looking at the Steam scale earlier in the podcast. But
I gave it a 7.5. I just really enjoyed it overall, and you guys know I don't give anything super high ratings. So, in hindsight, maybe I should have given it a higher rating just because I didn't find anything super problematic about it. But
I'm surprised you rated it this low, to be honest with you.
yeah, I mean, I really probably should have given it like an 8.5, but you guys know how I am. Too late to change it now. We've already got our group score locked in. So, yeah, I didn't find anything super problematic about it. I think if I were reading the physical copy and I would have noticed the errors Barbara's talking about, that would have bothered me as well. But I did audiobook, and so I
thank you for saying
didn't
that because I did
notice
want to
any of that.
quickly address that. So the audiobook, the narrator corrected those errors. I noticed a couple of those errors that Barbara's talking about reading because I on the plane when I read a fair amount of this on a plane. I was listening and reading, and I noticed the errors in the book, and the audiobook narrator
Huh.
fixed it.
I mean, I would
Good for the
hope so.
audiobook narrator.
Yeah, can you imagine if you're reading and you like say something, you're like, meh.
Right.
I only say that because I know that Lauren traditionally listens to most of these
Mhm,
books,
Yes.
mhm.
and so she would have
That's
not
true.
noticed
So
those
you don't
errors
really
at
notice
all.
those
Nope.
issues. Yeah.
The only time I would notice like those is if I'm reading a physical copy, and I rarely get to read physical copies of anything anymore.
Right.
So I thought it was
Because
seamless because it was audio.
but like
But
I
that would
said,
have bothered me too.
that's not on the author. I personally don't think. I think that's on an editor. That's the whole point of
Yes,
an
that
editor
is.
is to catch those things. I feel like, but
I definitely agree with that. But yeah, I liked the book. I would recommend it.
And like we said earlier, our group score for this one was a 7.2 out of 10. And with that, we are wrapping up another episode of our podcast. Make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Give us a rating or leave us a review if they allow you to. Super helpful, helps more people see our podcast. And also, it's always good to get feedback. Also, don't forget to be following us, like I said before, on social media. Our handle on Instagram, Facebook, and Goodreads is at Badass Lit Pod.
have feedback about today's episode, you can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on one of social media handles that we have.
As always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Michael.
Oh God, I'm Barbara. Not again. I'm Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I need
Oh
to
God,
fix
I'm
this.
Barbara.
I know. Because I muted myself and I was like, no.